Welcome to In the Black podcast, a mission to share powerful stories in hopes to inspire lives. This is a passion project brought to you by your hosts, Aracelli and Shannon, where we will interview women who have made something beautiful from something so dark. In today's episode, we will talk about how we came about the name title, Shannon's project called In the Black, Aracelli's idea of sharing these stories in a book or podcast, how the podcast project came together, and fun backstory of how we met. So, Shannon, would you like to tell our listeners how In the Black name came to fruition?
Sure. Um, Actually, it all started with the idea for a painting project. I visited Randy Bacon's gallery where he had a project that is now called 8 Billion Ones. And I was a part of that project telling my story. And he photographs people and tells their story. And I just thought it was so beautiful. And it kind of stuck with me. And as time passed, I worked on several bills and I got to know some very powerful women. And I was like, oh, how amazing would it be to tell their stories through art? And so I started pondering the idea and kind of putting together what that would look like and just trying to figure out what exactly I wanted to do. And the partner that I was with at the time and I were talking about it one day, and I was like, I need a name for this. I need something that's powerful and that kind of shows exactly what I'm looking for. As far as people who are overcoming negative and they're turning it into a positive in their life. And one of the main things that I wanted with all of the women, no matter their age or their demographic, basically, I wanted them all to be wearing black. And so that was just the primary, I want to keep it all together by everyone wearing black. And so when we were talking, he said, oh, well, what if you called it In the Black? Because that is kind of the financial term for when you take something negative and you put it into the positive, and they're also wearing black dresses. And I was like, oh, yeah, that would actually work. And so that's kind of how the name came to be. It was all like the ideas came first and then finally figured out what name fit it. And it's so perfect because it is something where we're talking about, you could be in the red in your life. You can be in a place where it's not comfortable and it feels very negative. But you can also turn that around and you can turn it into a positive and you can create a life that makes a difference in the world. And so I think the name is absolutely perfect for that. And I'm really excited to be making this project happen.
That's awesome. Could you tell us a little bit more about what that project looks like?
Absolutely. So basically what I'm doing, I have a certification in neurolinguistics programming, which is how words impact our brains and the things that we say to ourselves and the things that the people around us say to us, what that does as far as our life and the quality of the life that we lead. And so I'm taking that and I'm taking the negative words that these women have heard or the negative things that they've said to themselves, the things that come out in the interview. And in red, because that is the color of being in the negative in the financial realm, I'm writing these words on the canvas in paint. And then I'm switching that over, and the words that they now say about themselves, the changes that they're making in the world around them, the things that they're doing, I'm writing those in black over the red as the background. And then the women will be painted on top of that. And it's so fun. They're all wearing black, but some of them are wearing like a sports bra, and some of them are wearing a formal gown, and some of them are wearing overalls. And so it's just whatever makes them feel powerful and whatever they would wear when they're making a difference in the world. And so it's just such a fun experiment into how words impact our lives, but also like how much of a difference we can make and how diverse we are as humans, because For me, I feel most powerful when I'm in a dress. But for some people, they feel the most powerful when they're in their workout wear or when they're in, their overalls or sweats even. And so it's a fabulous look at how people perceive themselves. And I think it's going to be really powerful. So I'm very excited about it. So you came up with the idea for the podcast. So tell me a little bit about what that looked like.
So that was a little uncomfortable for me because podcast has been around for a long time. I was just like, wow, that's super cool that people do that. I could never do that. However, I started writing about my trauma when I moved, and I didn't expect it to flow out of me so easily and just come out for hours and hours just typing away. And then I thought, well, what am I going to do with this? Am I going to just leave it on my computer to never see the light again? Am I going to read it? Do I need to do something with this? So, months and months later, I thought maybe it's on my mind and it's weighing on me. So maybe I need to do something. So maybe I'm thinking, let's finish the book. And that was uncomfortable. So then I thought maybe I can find other stories like myself, just traumatic experiences, things like that, abuse, where people didn't just stay in that victim mentality, but overcame those challenges and made something great or wonderful out of it, such as, how are they, helping someone else come out of that situation, or how are they impacting, or how are they, making something wonderful out of it. So then I was like, okay, well, if I meet people who do have these stories and compile in a book, maybe I can, then have that, and then someone can read it, and hopefully that can inspire someone get out of that dark situation. Then I was like, I can't write a book. So then it brought me back to podcast, and there was just like no way that I could do a podcast on my own. Again, just negative self-talk and limiting beliefs about myself. And then Shannon, we had met thousands of years ago, and you have been on my mind, and I had no idea why. And so I one day, a few weeks back, had this. I've been wanting to reach out and talk to you about you being on my mind, but I never had the courage to, because that's just weird coming out of the blue. And it's not like we were, friends or talking every day or, weekly. We just knew each other, met each other, liked each other, ran into each other years later. And, that was it. So it would have been weird if I would just reach out. And then one day it wasn't weird. And I had the courage to reach out. And I told you what I had been thinking. And you were like, yes, like immediately, let's talk. So we talked, and I thought I was going to interview you and other women. And it turns out that you were like, no, like, this sounds like something. I've been working on a project. This sounds like the direction I need to go in. And so you were like, let's do this together and let's interview women together. So that's where the uncomfortable idea of having a podcast came along. So
I think it's amazing that you stepped out into that uncomfortable zone. I think that's one of the most powerful things that we can do as humans is get uncomfortable, because that's where real change comes from. And so I'm very proud of you for that.
well, thank you. So let's hear how the podcast project kind of came together on your side.
Well, as you know, I was doing the In the Black project, and I had recently decided to step away from art as a career in order to focus on the passions that I have for art, because I felt like I was using my creativity and going in a direction that didn't feel authentic to me. And I never want to do that again. I never want to be chasing a dollar bill and not doing the things that light me up. And I felt like that's what I was doing with my art even. And so I had decided that I was just going to go for it and do In the Black, and whatever I needed to do to make this happen, that's what I was going to do. And so I had actually posted probably about a week prior to you reaching out to me, I had posted something about, hey, I'm trying to figure out how to make this project work, and I'm not 100% sure what I'm doing, but I just know that I'm doing it. And if anybody wants to help, I would love the help. If anyone wants to nominate a woman, I would love to see your nominations. And I had about 150 women who reached out, and they were like, I want to be a part of this. And I had a couple who were like, I can help with your social media and different things like that. And then I was talking to my coach, and she was like, well, you need hero content every week. And so she was talking about how I needed to have something that drives all of my content for the week. And I was like, I don't know how to make that happen. I don't know what I'm doing. And sure enough, I got this message from Aracelli, and she says, I'm thinking about this, and it's been on my mind a lot, and for some reason you're coming to mind. And I was like, oh, that's the hero content. That's exactly what we need. And it was so perfect. And it was such a huge, like, soul resounding yes. Like, as soon as she called me, I was like, this is it. This is the hero content. This is exactly what we've needed. And I couldn't think of a better person to do this with. So I was really excited, and we've just put it together, and obviously we're kind of on the fly and, beginning. And so it's kind of a mess right now, but I'm sure that as we go, it's just going to get more and more powerful and more streamlined. And I'm just really, really excited about it. So thank you for reaching out to me.
It's so crazy to think how it all happened, and it's happening so fast,
Mm-hmm. It feels slow on my end, just because it's been a project that has been in the works for so long. And so it feels like it's finally starting to come together. So
the pieces are coming together.
Yes.
When we get out of our own way. So let's talk about the fun backstory of how we met. Do you want me to go first, or you go first?
Go for it.
Okay. So I was working at the YMCA back in Missouri, and Shannon took one of my classes. I think you said it was Butts and Guts, which I loved that class. It was so good.
It was so fun.
And then for some reason, I remember you running with me. Did I do a run class or something?
No, I ended up asking if you could train me personally, and we ended up working out together pretty regularly.
Oh, for fun.
Yeah.
So I don't remember that. That's amazing. It was, I knew there was something, but I couldn't really remember what it was. But I remember us running, and that was really fun. So we met. I want to say on Messenger the date was 2015, the last time that we had chatted, and I didn't even look prior to that, so I'm not really exactly sure when we met. But I know that you were going through something you had mentioned with. I think maybe you didn't have any Facebook account, or maybe you were like hiding or something, and it was a spouse situation, and you had mentioned Harmony House, which you explained to them what that means.
Yes. So I was actually living in the battered women's shelter. And the reason I was at the YMCA is because they gave us passes, daily passes, where we could go and work out, or use the sauna, or, just get away and have childcare. And so I did try to take advantage of everything that was offered at the Harmony House, which was the shelter. And that's how I found myself at the YMCA. And when I saw the Butts and Guts class, I really liked the name. I'm not going to lie. And I was like, oh, that looks like fun. And so that's how I ended up in your class. And
Oh,
then when you were teaching the class, your energy was just so dynamic, and I was very drawn to that. And so I just approached and asked if you wanted to work together, because I had a goal. I was trying to run a half marathon with my best friend later that year. And you said, yeah, let's do it. So
oh, I love that. Go Sally, little young Sally. So yes, I met you through there, and then I think you just disappeared, or I don't know what happened. Um, Go
So
ahead.
when I moved out of the shelter, I no longer had access to the YMCA, and because I was working a very close to minimum wage job, a gym membership was not a priority for me, and so that's kind of where that went.
Okay. And at the time, I was young, 20s, so I didn't really know what to do with that information, but I knew that your story resonated. I was familiar with kind of what I was familiar with. Not, harmony wise, but I just had a similar story. And so I don't know if that just stood out to me or what, but that left an imprint. So fast forward, you're on my mind. I don't reach out. Then I see that you're doing art and you're hosting an event. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, that girl is the girl that I had in my butts and guts class. She's now doing art. So that means she's no longer like, in danger or like having, that situation happen. So I'm really curious as to how she got out and like, look at her go now. Like, I'm so proud, which means nothing coming from me because, you just met me a long time ago. Who am I? But I was like so proud of this, beautiful lady that I met so back then. And now you've like blossomed and are like making, creating beautiful things. And it's art. So then I was really like, oh my gosh, I want to go support her. So that was my first painting with a twist. I don't know what it's really called, but first experience. And it was so fun. And I still have that painting. It sits in my living room.
That's awesome.
Play. And I wanted to do another one, but we ended up moving. So then again, I didn't obviously be like, hey, Shannon, in your art show, I want to talk about, how you've been on my mind. So that was weird. So I didn't say anything. And I was just like, oh my gosh, it's so good to see you. And that was it. And then, of course, fast forward into this month or last month, and I reached out and this whole thing unraveled. But yeah, so that was my story into how we met.
Yeah, it's definitely an adventure. It's always fun seeing how relationship dynamics ebb and flow and where they go or don't go. And I don't know, seasons are fun. And I'm really excited that you reached out because I think this is going to be amazing. So basically, that is how our podcast has come to be. And I'm super excited to share not only the podcast, but the project as it comes to fruition. And eventually, we are going to have a book out. And it's just going to be such an incredible time learning about these incredible women. So stay tuned for our next guest, because we are talking to someone who is beautiful and powerful and personally impacted my life. And I'm very excited to have her on the show. And I am looking forward to seeing you guys next week. Thanks.
Don't forget to subscribe and follow and share and post any comments that you may have down below.